Using the employee class that I created earlier, we're going to make some modifications to it to make it more useful. First thing I'm going to do is remove this constructor that allows an employee to be created without an ID, without a first name, a last name, an email address, or a hire date. This means now that in order for an employee to be created, I have to know their employee ID, their first name, last name, email, and hire date in order for them to be created as an employee. So after I make these changes and I look at the employer tester class, you'll see now that I'll have an error that there's no such constructor for this. So I'm going to actually modify this constructor to add in the components so that Oliver can still be created, but they have to be included whenever the object is originally created. Now that I've created that with that constructor, I'm going to remove the sets for these items. Now whenever I run my program, I'll see that I still create it using the new constructor and all the information stays the same. This is one method we can use to control the objects being created off of classes and to make sure that the data that we're using to create an object of the class is legitimate. Flip back over to employee. I'm going to add in another check here into set first name. I want to make sure that the first name has a value in it and that we're not just setting an empty string. So inside of set first name, I'm going to add in an if statement to check to make sure that the length of what is being passed in is greater than 0 before I set the value. Now it's only going to set the first name if the first name is greater than 0. So if I flip back over here to Oliver, it's still going to run, but we're going to have the value null in there. It's not going to set the value for it. It's not going to be an empty string. I'm going to put the word Oliver back in here. We're going to go back over to our other class and do the same thing for last name. So now if I use my employee tester class and take out a last name, I'm not going to have just a blank string there. I'm going to have the word null. And you can see in the next unit that we're able to do a test on null, and we can do things accordingly based on if we receive a null value. Back in my employer tester class, I'm going to go ahead and put back in the last name so I can make sure that it's working. Finally, because I don't want the employees to have the ability to change their employee ID after the employee object has been created, I'm going to remove the set employee ID method. So this means that the only way an employee ID is set is when it is set initially whenever the employee is created. This adds data protection to my class in that now nobody can go in there and change the employee ID. I'm only able to use it whenever the constructor is set. So now I have an error inside of my class and inside of my constructor, and I can just modify this to get the ID to be set. So now it will modify the value inside of employee ID, and I don't have any kind of error checking or anything like that on that particular item. If I was going to do that, I would need to do that inside of this constructor now. So for example, if I didn't allow employee IDs to be entered that begin with a number, I could put that if statement in here, and then employee ID would end up null, and I would be able to do checks on that. So these are some of the methods that you can use to control what data is being put into your class and what data values are being set for your instance variables.